First guest, member on the House Judiciary Committee, Texas. Their hypocrisy and dishonesty was breathtaking, but expected, no?
Yes, the hypocrisy runs rampant here in Washington across the aisle from my Democratic colleagues. You know, we've got an inquiry. We are not impeaching Joe Biden today. This is an inquiry. And if he is as innocent as they proclaim him to be, then they should encourage this inquiry, and they should be absolutely for getting the facts, and if he's so great and innocent, then clearing his name, as they say he deserves. But the hypocrisy doesn't just stop there. We see it all over this nation. We see it in the Democratic governor of New York and the mayor of New York City, who are declaring sanctimoniously their sanctuary states and cities, calling those of us in places like Texas to be anti-immigrant. All the while, they're now turning away folks and saying we can't take any more. But the hypocrisy from the Democratic Party is something, sadly, we've all come to expect, and that is what we're fighting today on the Hill.
Yeah, our Governor Greg Abbott was patting them on the back for recognizing the dangers of illegal immigration. Finally, then they're changing their tune. We'll have more on that in the show later. But, sir, to your party now, the Republican Party, at odds over this spending bill. You know, there were reports that in a closed-door meeting, McCarthy said he thinks that Chuck Schumer is actually kind of likely to be favorable toward taking some Ukraine money out of this continuing resolution. But it's Mitch McConnell who is steadfastly fighting for the Ukrainian government. Mr. McConnell has said that despite all the harm the Democrats, his buddies, the Democrats, have been doing to America, his primary concern is for Ukraine. Watch.
Making sure the Defense Department can deal with the major threats coming from Russia and China, providing assistance for the Ukrainians to defeat the Russians. That's the #1 priority for the United States right now, according to most Republicans. That's sort of how we see the challenges confronting the country at the moment.
So, Congressman, not 7.5 million illegal aliens and all the harm being done to our home state of Texas. That's not Mitch McConnell's concern. Congressman, what percentage of Americans do you think believe that Ukraine's borders are worth protecting when our own remains wide open to massive illegal immigration and incursions?
Well, I think Mitch McConnell is so grossly out of touch with the American people when he states that our priority should be securing Ukraine's border. No matter what you think about the Ukrainian conflict, whether you think we should support it or not, for you to not recognize that our greatest problem here in the United States is our own lack of security, this immigrant crisis, I think that's just a real testament to how out of touch he is. It is time for him to retire and move on. But I will say, if he was fighting for the security of our own border as hard as he's fought in the last year for Ukraine, we'd perhaps have a secure border by now. And that's one of the problems we're facing, is we've got some of these moderate Republicans who refuse to stand with us in the one opportunity that we have to stand up to this president. Every American with a brain knows that the White House and the Senate are controlled by Democrats, and the only thing we control is the House of Representatives, and it's by a small margin. And so what we're trying to do in the House is stand together and say that we believe that this border must be secured before we will agree to anything. You can call it a continuing resolution, you can call it temporary funding, whatever the term you want to use. At the end of the day, they're not going to get my vote or many of my colleagues' votes for any spending whatsoever if we're not willing to secure the border. And I think that Democrats recognize this as a problem. As I mentioned, the governor of New York and the mayor there, they're saying that the biggest problem they're facing is the immigrant crisis. The president of the United States would not even meet with the New York mayor last week because he knows they disagree. He doesn't want to talk about this crisis. But privately, Democrats have said to me, we hope you guys will force this on us because we know this needs to happen, but we just can't be the ones doing it. So you have the situation where some Democrats, they all want to go to heaven, but they don't want to die. And that's the situation that we have here on the Hill. We want to secure this border first and foremost. And anyone that says Ukraine, or frankly anything, is more of a priority than securing the border is out of touch.
Well, Congressman, for Senator Mitch McConnell to stand with you, he would have to oppose a Democrat, and he and John Cornyn and Mitt Romney, they just don't do that, Congressman. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time here and also your